What if everything you've been told about lust was a lie? Osho, the controversial yet deeply insightful mystic, believed that lust is not the enemy of spirituality, but rather a misunderstood energy that holds the potential for transformation. In today's video, we'll dive deep into Osho's hidden truth about lust, exploring how this natural human force can either imprison us or liberate us depending on how we approach it. By the end, you'll never look at desire in the same way again. Osho explained that lust is one of the most powerful energies within human beings. Society has often demonized it, portraying desire as sinful or shameful. But Osho challenged this perspective. To him, lust is not inherently wrong, it's simply raw life energy seeking expression. Just as hunger drives us to eat and thirst drives us to drink, lust drives us to connect physically. The problem, Osho said, is not lust itself, but our unconscious relationship with it. When we repress or deny this energy, it often resurfaces in twisted or destructive ways. But if we acknowledge lust with awareness, without judgment, it becomes a path towards self-understanding. Osho taught that lust is not something to be feared, but something to be observed. He compared it to fire. It can burn the house down if uncontrolled, but it can also cook your food and keep you warm if harnessed with intelligence. In most cultures, people are conditioned to repress lust. Religions often promote celibacy or abstinence as the ultimate virtue, leaving individuals burdened with guilt whenever desire arises. Osho strongly opposed this approach. He argued that repression doesn't lead to purity, it leads to hypocrisy. When desire is suppressed, it doesn't disappear. Instead, it becomes more dangerous, often manifesting in hidden, unhealthy ways. Osho emphasized awareness as the key. By observing lust without judgment, you bring light to it. Awareness transforms the quality of energy. For instance, when you watch your thoughts and desires closely, without labeling them as good or bad, you begin to understand their roots. This understanding slowly transforms lust into love, and eventually, love into compassion. For Osho, the path was never about fighting your inner drives, but embracing them consciously. Only then, he said, can you rise above the unconscious cycle of suppression and indulgence. Osho revealed that lust, when approached with mindfulness, can evolve into love. Lust is rooted in the physical, but love is rooted in the heart. They may appear separate, but Osho believed they are part of the same continuum. He said lust is like a seed. If nourished with awareness, it blooms into the flower of love. Many people stop at lust and never move beyond it, which leaves them unsatisfied. Others reject lust entirely and miss the chance to grow through it. Osho's wisdom was that lust can be the starting point of a journey toward deeper connection. By being present in intimacy, by honoring the humanity of your partner, and by recognizing the sacredness of union, lust transforms into love. And love, Osho taught, is not just about two people. It's a vibration that opens you up to existence itself. This evolution from lust to love is the true alchemy of human experience. Going deeper, Osho explained that when love matures, it expands into compassion. Compassion is love without conditions. Unlike lust, which seeks personal fulfillment, compassion seeks to give, to share, and to heal. Osho described compassion as the fragrance that arises when lust and love are fully understood. He pointed out that many great spiritual figures, from Buddha to Jesus, radiated compassion because they had gone through this inner transformation. They were not fighting against desire, but had transcended it. Osho emphasized that compassion is the ultimate flowering of human energy. When you are no longer enslaved by lust, and when love has deepened into awareness, compassion naturally arises. This is the state where you can embrace the entire world with kindness and acceptance. Lust is no longer a prison. It becomes the doorway to spiritual liberation. This teaching is both radical and liberating because it allows us to see desire not as an obstacle, but as the beginning of a greater journey. Osho was not just a philosopher. He was a practical teacher. He gave clear advice on how to live with lust consciously. First, don't repress it. Suppression only strengthens the very thing you're trying to escape. Second, don't indulge in it unconsciously. Blind indulgence can trap you in endless cravings. Instead, practice mindfulness. When desire arises, watch it. Feel the energy without rushing to act on it or to push it away. This observation brings clarity. Another practical step Osho recommended was meditation. Through meditation, you cultivate awareness, and awareness itself transforms energy. You begin to see lust not as a burden, but as a teacher. Over time, your relationships deepen, your love becomes richer, and your compassion expands. By applying Osho's wisdom in daily life, you don't just tame lust, you transcend it, turning it into a force that enriches your soul rather than entangles it. Osho often described lust as pure energy. He said that labeling it as bad or dirty is what corrupts it. When you look at lust not as an act, but as a surge of life force moving through you, the entire perception changes. This energy is neither moral nor immoral, it simply is. For Osho, the challenge was not to control or condemn this energy, but to channel it wisely. Just as electricity can power a bulb or cause destruction depending on how it's handled, desire too can create either chaos or enlightenment. By becoming conscious of this energy, we can direct it into creativity, love, and meditation. Osho urged people to stop fearing their desires and instead see them as opportunities for growth. The energy behind lust is the same energy that can fuel artistic expression, deep relationships, and even spiritual awakening. Many people believe that the path to spirituality is about controlling lust, but Osho shattered this idea. He said control is just another form of repression, and repression never leads to freedom. When you control something, you lock it in a cage, but it continues to live inside you, waiting for a chance to break free. Lust controlled is lust postponed. It does not disappear. According to Osho, the more you try to dominate desire, the more it dominates you from the shadows. True mastery comes not from control, but from understanding. When you see lust clearly, when you strip away guilt, shame, and judgment, you realize it loses its grip over you. Awareness dissolves the illusion of control. Instead of fighting your inner drives, Osho encouraged embracing them, watching them, and in that very observation, transcending them. One of Osho's boldest teachings was the connection between lust and creativity. He said the same energy that manifests as sexual desire can be transformed into music, poetry, painting, or invention. This is why so many artists, poets, and visionaries often have strong passions. They tap into that raw force and redirect it. Osho emphasized that creativity is not separate from lust. It's the refined expression of the same energy. If you suppress desire, you also suppress your ability to create. If you channel it consciously, you give birth to beauty. He encouraged people to use lust as a doorway, not only for intimacy, but for artistic and spiritual expression. By transforming lust into creativity, we enrich not only ourselves, but the world around us. This transformation, Osho explained, is one of the greatest gifts humans can achieve. Society's fear of lust is deeply rooted. Osho observed that cultures and religions fear desire because it makes people independent. When individuals embrace their desires consciously, they become less controlled by institutions. That's why organized religion has often demonized sexuality. It keeps people obedient. Osho exposed this manipulation, pointing out that fear of desire keeps humanity enslaved. If people are made to feel guilty about natural urges, they remain dependent on priests, leaders, and authority figures for salvation. Osho's message was revolutionary because it gave power back to the individual. By dropping the fear of lust and observing it naturally, people could reclaim their autonomy. He believed that fear should never dictate how we handle our inner energies. Lust, instead of being feared, should be understood, because only understanding leads to true freedom. Osho introduced a radical connection between lust and meditation. He said meditation is not the suppression of desires, but the transformation of them. When you meditate, you observe your inner landscape, the thoughts, the cravings, the surges of energy, without reacting. This same awareness applied to lust becomes a meditation in itself. Osho even designed meditation techniques that allowed people to release physical energy first through dance, breath, or catharsis before settling into silence. By doing this, lust is no longer an obstacle, but a bridge. Instead of denying desire, you bring it into your meditation, turning it into fuel for awareness. Osho believed that the journey from lust to enlightenment is not about fighting, but about deep seeing. The more mindful you are of desire, the less it controls you. And eventually, desire itself dissolves into pure presence. Osho emphasized that lust plays a significant role in relationships, but it should not be the foundation. Lust alone can bring people together, but without awareness, it often leads to conflict and disappointment. According to Osho, lust is the spark, but love is the flame that sustains. He warned that relationships built solely on physical attraction are bound to fade, as lust is temporary by nature. However, if partners approach intimacy with mindfulness, lust evolves into love, and love deepens into companionship. Osho suggested that relationships should be a space for growth, where both individuals use the energy of desire to connect not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. When lust becomes conscious, relationships shift from neediness to sharing, from possession to freedom. This is how intimacy becomes a path towards self-discovery. Osho warned that unconscious lust can become a trap of endless craving. When lust is mistaken for fulfillment, people keep chasing one desire after another, never satisfied. He compared it to drinking salty water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Without awareness, lust creates an illusion of satisfaction, but the joy it brings is fleeting. This is why many people feel empty even after indulging in their desires. Osho taught that the problem is not lust itself, but the unconscious chase for satisfaction through it. When you observe lust with awareness, you begin to see that true fulfillment doesn't come from endless indulgence, but from understanding the nature of desire itself. Once you see clearly, lust loses its grip, and you're no longer enslaved by the cycle of craving. Osho pointed out that most people live in inner conflict when it comes to lust. On one hand, they feel strong desires, and on the other, they feel guilt or shame for having them. This creates a painful division within. Religions often reinforce this split, teaching that desire is sinful, while human biology insists otherwise. Osho taught that this inner war is the root of suffering. The key, he said, is to dissolve the conflict by accepting desire as natural. Once you stop fighting against yourself, a deep peace arises. This acceptance doesn't mean blind indulgence. It means acknowledging what is, without judgment. Osho believed that inner harmony begins when we stop condemning our instincts and start embracing them as part of the journey. Osho often spoke about Tantra as a path of transforming lust into higher consciousness. Unlike traditional religions that preach suppression, Tantra celebrates desire as divine energy. Osho said Tantra is not about indulgence, but about awareness. Through Tantra, physical intimacy becomes a meditative act, where partners meet not just body to body, but soul to soul. Lust becomes sacred when it is infused with mindfulness. Osho taught that in Tantra, the physical union is a doorway to spiritual union. Instead of escaping from lust, you dive into it consciously, and in that depth, you transcend it. This teaching was revolutionary, challenging centuries of dogma and offering a path where spirituality and desire meet in harmony. For Osho, true freedom meant being free from unconscious drives. Lust, when unconscious, enslaves you. But when observed with clarity, it becomes a stepping stone to liberation. Osho reminded his followers that freedom doesn't come from denying or suppressing desires. It comes from understanding them deeply. He said, "Freedom is not from lust, freedom is through lust." This means that by walking consciously through the fire of desire, you emerge purified, transformed, and free. Osho's message was clear. Don't escape life. Don't escape desire. Live it with awareness, and in that living, you will find liberation. Lust is often portrayed as a barrier to spiritual growth, but Osho flipped this idea on its head. He said lust is not a hindrance, it's a starting point. Just as a seed must break open to grow into a tree, lust must be understood to blossom into love and compassion. Ignoring or repressing it only delays spiritual progress. By confronting desire consciously, we turn it into a teacher. Osho explained that every spiritual journey begins with the acceptance of our basic human energies. Once accepted, these energies can be transformed into higher states of awareness. Thus, lust is not against spirituality. It is part of the ladder that leads us upward. Osho is critical of how society conditions people to feel ashamed of their desires. From a young age, children are taught that lustful thoughts are dirty or sinful. This conditioning creates guilt, and guilt keeps people imprisoned. Osho argued that this conditioning was intentional, as it allowed authorities to control individuals more easily. By making people ashamed of their natural instincts, society creates obedient followers. Osho's approach was to strip away this conditioning, encouraging people to reclaim their innocence about desire. He said that once you see lust without the lens of social shame, it loses its toxicity and becomes a natural, even beautiful part of life. Another profound insight from Osho was that lust often feeds the ego. Many people use lust as a way to dominate, to conquer, or to feel superior. This makes lust destructive, not because of the desire itself, but because of the ego attached to it. Osho taught that when lust is combined with ego, it becomes a power game, reducing relationships to competition and possession. However, when lust is observed without ego, it transforms into love, which is rooted in sharing rather than taking. He emphasized that ego and lust together are toxic, but awareness can dissolve the ego, allowing desire to evolve into something pure and expansive. Osho encouraged his followers to see lust not as an obstacle, but as a teacher. He believed that every desire carries a lesson about who we are and what we seek. Lust teaches us about our attachments, our illusions, and our deeper longings. By observing lust, we begin to understand the workings of the mind and the body. Osho insisted that when you approach desire with curiosity instead of condemnation, it becomes a mirror reflecting your unconscious patterns. This mirror helps you grow, evolve, and eventually transcend the very cycle of craving. In this sense, lust is not the enemy, but the doorway to self-realization. In the end, Osho revealed that the ultimate liberation is to go beyond lust, not by fighting it, but by transforming it. He described the journey as a three-step process. Lust becomes love, love becomes compassion, and compassion becomes enlightenment. This is the natural evolution of human energy when it is lived consciously. Osho's hidden truth was not to deny desire, but to embrace it fully, with awareness, until it dissolves into pure being. Liberation, he said, is not in suppression, but in transformation. And once you reach this state, lust no longer rules you. It becomes just another stepping stone on the path to spiritual freedom. Osho often explained that lust is not only about the body, it is deeply connected to the mind. The body experiences attraction, but the mind creates fantasies, illusions, and expectations around it. According to Osho, this is why lust feels so powerful. It's not just a biological urge, but a psychological projection as well. The mind keeps replaying desires, weaving stories about what might happen or what should happen, intensifying the craving. Osho urged people to watch this mechanism. If you observe closely, you'll notice that the mind often exaggerates lust, making it seem bigger than it is. By becoming aware of this body-mind connection, you gain freedom from being enslaved by it. Osho's teaching was that when the mind is silent, the body's desires are simple and natural. But when the mind interferes, lust becomes a storm. Understanding this connection is the first step toward balance. Osho placed great importance on breath as a tool for transforming lust. He explained that whenever desire arises, the breath changes. You breathe faster, shallower, and more urgently. By becoming aware of the breath in these moments, you can bring calm and clarity. Osho suggested slowing down the breath, inhaling deeply, and observing the energy in the body. This practice helps shift the raw intensity of lust into awareness. In fact, many of his meditation techniques involved conscious breathing to redirect sexual energy into higher states of consciousness. Osho said that breath is the bridge between the body and the spirit. By mastering your breath, you can master the way lust moves through you, using it as a tool for awakening rather than as a force of unconsciousness. Osho often highlighted the connection between lust and loneliness. He explained that many people mistake lust for love simply because they are trying to escape the pain of loneliness. When you feel empty inside, lust appears as a quick solution, a temporary escape. But Osho warned that this only deepens the problem, because once the moment passes, loneliness returns even stronger. He taught that true intimacy can only arise when you first embrace your own aloneness. Instead of running from loneliness through lust, Osho encouraged sitting with it, understanding it, and transforming it into a state of self-love. Only when you are whole in yourself can lust evolve into genuine love. Otherwise, it remains a desperate attempt to fill a void. Osho's hidden truth was that lust without self-awareness can never heal loneliness. It only masks it. Osho made a clear distinction between lust and love. Lust, he said, is about taking, while love is about giving. Lust seeks to satisfy personal craving, while love seeks to share joy. Lust is rooted in the body, love is rooted in the soul. He often said that lust is short-lived, like a flame that burns quickly and fades, whereas love is enduring, like a steady light that warms the heart. But he also emphasized that lust can be the doorway to love if lived consciously. Without awareness, lust remains shallow, but with awareness, it deepens and transforms. Osho encouraged people not to condemn lust, but to let it mature into love through mindfulness. In his words, lust is immature love, and love is ripened lust. Understanding this difference can transform relationships and personal growth. Osho was very critical of how lust is often tied to power dynamics in society.